Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our information session about the Master of Legal Studies program at UCLA School of Law. So I'm Mary Plizakowski. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Studies, and today is our part-time student panel with some of our current M.L.S students. It's my favorite type of information session because you can hear directly from the students about their current experience and also how it was able to flexibly fit into their working schedule. So about 75 to 80% of our M.L.S students are part-time. So classes are generally in the evening, starting at 6:30 p.m. and that's to cater for our students who are working professionals. And the part-time program, it can run from 2 to 4 years, depending on your preference. And just some fun facts, the average age of our part-time student population that started this fall 2021 is 37 years old, and the year before that it was 39 years old. So if after this session you enjoy hearing about our M.L.S students, then please connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We do like to spotlight our current students and our graduates and all the good stuff that they're doing. We also post information on our upcoming events. So connect with us at UCLA Law M.L.S. And as a friendly reminder, the priority application deadline is November 29. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Executive Director of the program, Jason Fisk, and our awesome M.L.S students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon during lunch here. And so we have, at the moment, we have 3 of our current part-time students in the program. We'll have another one joining us in a few minutes. He had class that ran up until 12, and so he'll be here shortly. But as starting off, this is really about them and about their experiences in the program. If you'd like to know more specific details about the program or questions, feel free to connect with us through email, and we can set up a phone conversation or email chat. We're happy to help you in any way that's necessary. And if you have questions at all for the panelists or just any question at all, feel free to chat it in the chat box at any time. And after I'm done asking each of the panelists a few questions, we'll answer all those questions at the end of the session. So feel free to chat in at any time, and then we'll get to them at the end. And again, thanks for taking the time to join us. So starting off here, the first question I want to pose to everyone, I'm going to go around, everyone will introduce themselves and also answer this question while you're introducing yourself. So the first question is, what made you choose the Master of Legal Studies program at UCLA Law School? And so that, go ahead and introduce yourself, and also feel free to answer that question as you see fit. So we'll start off with Brad, and then we'll go Vanessa, then Giles. So Brad, kick us off here.
All right. Hey guys. Hi everyone. So I'm Brad Burnside. I'm a vice president at Viacom CBS. I work in the creative music strategy team. And that just means all the music that's coming in and out of our programming, I'm the one who does all the licensing for it, for anyone who wants to use it outside. So I'm dealing with lawyers, I'm dealing with a whole bunch of different contracts all day. I'm doing music licensing negotiations, just a whole bunch of stuff that is around what the legal department does. It's actually a part of the legal department, but it's not a lawyer. I'm not a licensed attorney. So when I was looking for a higher education experience, I've got a couple different aspirations. I was thinking MBA, or didn't really quite know what would fit into my schedule. I actually came across this and through LinkedIn, Jason and I were talking, and we had the program brochure reviewing it. And it all just kind of lined up. I was like, yes, I'm in legal. No, I don't want to be a lawyer. I do work all day within these kinds of constructs, and I want to learn more about it, and I want a higher degree. And I've always looked at UCLA. And so there's a lot of things that's really lined up for me. So happy to talk a lot further on that, but that's kind of the gist of it for me.
My name is Vanessa Duran. I am currently an employee relations specialist at Equinox. So what this means is I investigate any claims of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation in my workplace. Those are, very gnarly situations to look into. I've been trained by different attorneys. I've attended the AWI Training Institute, and I love the investigative process. I'm working with attorneys all the live long day, but I don't want to be an attorney. So when I came across this program, I was super excited about it because I do find the law very interesting. I do want to have more fruitful and productive conversations with our legal counsel, internal and external. So that's really what drew me to this program. I am a double Bruin, and I'm a huge advocate for first generation professionals and students. So the great thing about UCLA and the M.L.S. program is that there are so many of us first gens in the program. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'll turn it over to Giles.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thanks, Jason, and everyone as well. Delighted to be here. So my name is Giles Sutton. I'm interim co-CEO of an international trade association that is in the smart home and IoT technology space. A big part of my role is to work with technology companies and specifically around helping them build a go-to-market strategy around reaching consumers. So we represent professionals that design and install technology in the space. So I work with a lot of big tech companies as well as large national retailers. What drew me to this program, I did a lot of research in this, like Brad, I looked at the MBA, I looked at the sort of work experience that I'd had. I've also run a company in the past, my own company in the UK for 14 years. So I felt like I had a lot of business experience, but like others, I spend a lot of time in contracts. I spend, a lot of time, kind of working around specific partnerships and liaising a lot with our law firm. So really, when I found this program, it just really, looking at it, it really married a lot with what I thought initially was going to be, the main reason for doing, which was more sort of the business and contract side of it. But what's interesting is since delving more deeply into it, I've found a whole load of other really interesting areas that in areas such as cybersecurity, intellectual property, patent law. So it's what's interesting is I kind of initially looked at it as helping me with really kind of the administration and drafting of contracts, but it's actually taking me down an interesting path. And that's one of the really exciting things about this program. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. It just looked very unique. And, as I mentioned when I first joined the school, I'm also from a family of lawyers, and I didn't want to be another lawyer. So it was kind of like, it's a way to learn about the law, but not necessarily, become another lawyer, which, I think there's a lot of lawyers in the world, I think.
There definitely are. Thanks, Giles. And Chester, welcome. Thanks for joining us. As I mentioned, Chester is just coming from class, and I do believe he's found a nice little home there in the library in one of the rooms to make this work. So thanks, Chester, for making it. Chester, it's your turn just to introduce yourself and then answer the question, why did you choose to do the Master of Legal Studies at UCLA Law?
Sure, great. So I, my name is Chester Rodeheber. I am, among other things, I'm a chief financial officer of a little studio out here in Los Angeles, which is one of the great outputs of this program. I actually, so back in 2019, 2020, started participating as an investor in the entertainment space. It was something I'd never done before. I was always in finance. I do have an MBA actually. It's a previous degree. And I found so COVID started, and I thought, my gosh, I have a lot of time on my hands and a lot of things I don't know about entertainment. I couldn't think of a better place to fill that gap than at UCLA. And then also throughout the course of my career, I've found that the two things I didn't learn in business school and undergrad were accounting and law, and those are really the way sort of the tools that people use to get business done. So I'd kind of taken care of the accounting, got as much knowledge as I thought I needed, but with respect to law, it was all just very ad hoc, learn on the fly, and I didn't feel like I had the formal training that I wanted. I like everybody else I think on this call, didn't really want to be a lawyer. I know a lot of lawyers my age who say they do anything to get out of it, but nevertheless they bring it's clear that the legal education they got really helped them to become really impressive professionals. So I thought, wow, this is a great way to sort of dip my toe into law, get just enough, take the best of the best of legal education, also get some subject matter expertise, which was important to me. kind of fill those two needs, two birds with one stone, and here we are. It's worked fabulously. As I mentioned, I was sort of dabbling in entertainment before. I'm now CFO of a little studio, and that was at least in part because of my affiliation with this program.
Fantastic. So Brad, Vanessa, and Giles are all in their first semester of the program, all in the part-time program, while Chester's in his second year of the program for part-time. But so far, how has your experience been so far in the classes and with other students and the faculties? What have you experienced so far in your time? Starting with Brad.
Sure. So I'm only in one class. So I'd say, I don't know, maybe Jason, you have the stats, but I'm just doing one class per semester. So it's the 6:30 class, it's private law. And I don't like, I've blocked out time for myself to do all of this and to make sure that I have all of the preparation needed. And so I don't know, Jason and I were just talking about this the other day on like what the actual hour allotment would be. So I'm thinking it's around like the 6 hours a week outside of class. And that was around my expectation. Tuesdays are in person and Thursdays are remote. So I'm not sure how it will be set up on moving forward, but it's been beyond my expectation of what I would have with an immediate kind of colleague cohort group. And I think that's been like the most surprising, but also rewarding so far. Like we've just been able to connect on not just like what we're doing on this class level, but also as like our aspirations are moving and what we've been doing for this higher education and what we're all like kind of forming this new community for. Like that's been something that's been really interesting for me. Yeah, I mean, it's been more reading than I thought, but everyone told me that there would be a lot of reading, so I'm not like really surprised that the cold calling and everything there, it does exist, and sometimes I'm a little bit scared if I don't feel as prepared as possible, but like that's all just stuff that as a student, just like really putting my gear back into being a student has been like just getting a little bit easier and easier as each class goes in. So I can go on for hours. I'll let somebody else.
Thanks, Brad. The quick hitters on that as far as this next year upcoming, the part-time program will be Tuesday, Thursday, both on campus for next year in the evenings. And of the part-time students, about 80% or so take a couple classes to start off, which would average about 18 to 20 hours a week, while about 20% of the part-time students, as Brad did, selects just one class, which would be more around like 8 to 10 hours of work a week on average. So thanks, Brad. Vanessa.
I'm a little biased because I am a double Bruin, as I mentioned, but so my experience has been fantastic. The faculty is amazing. Again, I'm biased, but UCLA offers just top tier education. We are the #1 public university. We have a very highly ranked law school, so you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck from the faculty. I am taking 2 classes this semester. I'm taking public and private law with Karopkin and Professor Rich, and both of them are very passionate about what they teach. They're both really open to questions and feedback from the students, which I really appreciate. So, I mean, you really can't beat the quality of education, right? But also from a networking perspective and my interpersonal relations with some of the rest of the cohort, I mean, that has far exceeded my expectations. I know that Jason and Mary shared a little bit of the stats earlier on in this conversation, but we really do have a wide range of just the number of years of experience that everyone in the cohort has, but also in terms of age, there's a lot of diversity there. You really see people across the entire spectrum in terms of age and experience. We're all go-getters, so we're all eager to kind of just build connections with each other. I've kind of taken on like a volunteer social chair type of position within the cohort. So I've been making sure to make this experience socially enriching for the rest of the cohort as well. I mean, I personally can't say enough about my experience here, but again, I'm biased, right? So with that, I'll turn it over to Giles.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, I mean, for all the same reasons, it's an incredible faculty, and that's, you know, part of the reason we're here, right? And why we want to be, why we chose UCLA. It's what, you know, one of the top law schools in the country, and so the teaching quality is extremely high. I think, you know, from my perspective, there are a number of reasons for doing it. You know, it's not just that I've been out of education for a long time. You know, I graduated in 2001 with my undergrad. So for me, it's been a little bit of a shock to the system. And actually, particularly law is an interesting way of learning. You know, you're using your brain in a completely different way. And it's not just reading cases, it's whether you really kind of understand the cases. That's the key thing, and trying to sort of synthesize them and find similarities between different things that you're reading. So it is a lot of reading. I like Vanessa, I'm doing the two classes, private and public law. And you just, you know, you just need to stay on top of it and just dedicate a lot of time to it. I think, you know, there is, and just find a structure that works. You know, I also attended one of these webinars before applying, and you know, people had a range of different ways that they were structuring it around their lives. So, you know, even from lunch breaks to just blocking out an entire Sunday. But, you know, there is definitely a time investment that's needed in it. But really, you know, the other reason I did it, and I think a number would say the same thing, is to also kind of make more connections, to actually, you know, make some friends. You know, we all know LA is not the easiest city to make friends in, and actually we've formed a really great bond really quickly. I was amazed, and there's a really great camaraderie. And I'm delighted that we're able to, you know, learn in person as opposed to, you know, the first year where everything was online. So, and it's, you know, there's just so much going on at the law school. It's just fascinating being suddenly back in this whole kind of world. You see, there's so many different, I mean, you do get about hundreds of emails, but there's so many different, you know, things in different areas of law that, in terms of, you know, racial inequality and LGBTQ rights and, you know, public interest, and so many different areas that you can just dive into if you want to. So it's really interesting. It's just really, you know, really kind of exciting and energetic to be part of that.
Thanks, Giles. And Chester.
Well, for all the irresponsible, bad students out there who still want to do well in school, I have good news. So I'm a second year. I'll say this. I aspired, of course, at the beginning of each term to be responsible and dedicate the appropriate number of hours to my schoolwork and my reading each week, and that usually lasts about 3 days. But what I've learned, and maybe others will go through or have gone through a similar learning curve. You become a better law student. I mean, there's a shock to the system when you first get in, and I certainly panicked a little bit the first semester, or beginning of the first semester, saying, "Oh my gosh, what have I done? It's just too much. I have no life now. I have to do all this reading." But you kind of figure out how to get to. I think the important takeaways, and by the way, that's a great skill in life too, because there's, you know, especially now we're constantly swimming in too much information, and so one of the things I think I learned was to really figure out what was important and what was maybe something I could procrastinate and put off and read just before exams. So I did it. So my tactic ended up being to kind of breeze through the semester and then decide that the 2 or 3 weeks before exams would be just completely miserable, and I would cram. That worked well enough. But I guess everybody has their own technique. I sort of wish sometimes I could be smoother and just do the 10 or 15 or 20 hours a week or whatever it's supposed to be. But that's just not. I've just never been good at that. So there's more than one way to do this, and I found I was able to do, in fact, pretty heavy course loads without really disrupting disrupting other activities more than I had to. But so it's manageable. It's a heck of a shock at first. Law school is very different from other education that I've gotten in the past, but it's a great education. The whole notion of legal reasoning and so on is very real, and I found it makes me better at everything else I do, really, even things that are not related to law specifically.
Fantastic, thanks. And so both Giles and Chester kind of touched on this question, which is for a lot of people the most important question. And it's everyone here on this call, and I presume everyone who's attending, listening, is a working professional. And so how do you fit this program into your lives? You have your jobs. A lot of people have their families and friends and social life. How do you make it all work? And so Giles, you had a good answer there for yourself, but then let's hear from the other panelists on the same question, starting with Brad, then Vanessa, then Giles.
So I am in my first semester. So a little bit what Chester said, it was ringing true. Like, all right, what have I gotten myself into, and how much time commitment is this really? But yeah, it's for me. I work on time blocks. Like I put it in my schedule. Like I'm very busy throughout the day, like from 9 to about 6 most days. Just super full on. I'm 100% remote right now. I think a lot of people are in that circumstance with their jobs. So I try not to get into school mode throughout the day. I mean, today is like a lunch hour. It's great, fine. And there are office hours that are, sometimes like Friday afternoons with Karabkin, for example. I try to like block out like a half hour type thing with that. But I kind of have it as like Monday nights are 2-hour blocks for me to read and to like get up to speed with our Tuesday class. I try to do it as close to the class as possible so I'm fresh, because if I do it like a week in advance and then we get called on like some minute detail in a case or something that I don't really remember, and that's not the best look for me. So that's kind of how I'm doing it. Mondays are like a couple hour blocks, Tuesdays the actual class, Wednesdays a couple hour blocks, Thursdays the actual class. And I think Friday and Saturdays off, totally. I have to. I just like make myself just not do anything. Sundays are kind of like the heavier lifting days, or if we have like a quiz or something that I need to brush up on, that's when I like outline everything, get my notes all into gear kind of thing. So that's kind of how I've been doing it so far. It's been pretty smooth. Also, it helps me feel like I can still have a little bit of a life. And after 2 hours, once you're reading on a Tuesday, like it's 8:30-ish, and then go out to dinner or something. And it's important for me to make sure I have like that balance there. So
fantastic. Vanessa.
Similar to what Brad was sharing, I also dedicate a couple of hours on Monday and Wednesday nights to kind of knock out my readings. I do try to make sure that my weekends are for me and my time to kind of like rest, recharge, and get ready for, the next week. That said, things don't always go according to plan. Some weekends are slower than others. So if there is like a Sunday night, for example, where I have a quiz coming up or where I have just quite a bit of downtime, then I will dive into the readings and try to knock them out for the week, just so that I have, a little bit of time back Monday through Friday to catch up on, Grey's Anatomy or whatever, The Bachelorette, whatever you want to plug in there. But the great thing about being in a program with so many other working professionals is that so many of us, 80% of us, if I heard correctly, are in the same boat. So if I fall behind on my notes, people are so nice and so willing to share theirs. I just had a friend's wedding that I went to this last week, and so I couldn't make the Thursday classes, and Megan was so kind to share her notes with me. So it's great to be able to lean on such a great group of people to kind of make it all work and to kind of really achieve that good balance of work and life and school now. The other way that I fit the classes into my busy schedule as well is I make use of the Panocto class recordings. So those have been super useful. And I also do want to plug that something else that I found incredibly helpful was that series of like prep classes, Jason, that you put on before leading up to our orientation week, where we were taught how to conduct research, how to put together an IRAC and a case brief, and really pull those key details. So that's something that the program does incredibly well that I'm not sure that other programs offer their students. I feel like without that series of, I guess, prep courses, I wouldn't have been as prepared, and it probably would have taken me a lot longer to like read the material and like draw out like key details. So I would say because of those series of prep courses, I've been able to balance this all so well, thankfully. But to someone else's point, you do kind of experience that sort of like shock the first month or so where you're like, what have I gotten myself into? I did feel that to some degree, but I'm going to plug Jason again. I feel like that series of prep classes was just so helpful in that regard.
All right, great. Giles.
Yeah, I agree. The prep classes are really, really helpful. I think a lot of it, if you've been out of education for a long time, I think a lot of it is just, again, just trying to get used to a kind of way of also taking notes, ways that you can remember things, going back, distilling it. I'm a little different to Vanessa. I mean, I dedicate one day at the weekend to really get all the reading done. And then what I'll do, because my job, I travel a lot with my work. And also I have offices. I have an office on the East Coast and an office in the UK as well. So, I find it very difficult to have a kind of structured way of reading during the week. So and the classes are enough, really. So what I typically do is allow a day, a weekend, just to really do all my reading, and also just to kind of go back and look at the notes that I'd taken from the classes previously. And as Vanessa said, you can go back and play those recordings, which is super helpful, because that every class is recorded. And then all it is just a quick kind of refresher before the actual classes as well. So do all the reading at the weekend, go back, check your notes from the previous classes, and then just the refresher before the classes each week. You throw in there a little quiz that you have to prepare for as well, and then a practice midterm, a midterm exam. And it's an interesting time to have this webinar because we are kind of in the eye of the storm right now, Jason. in our first semester, we've just done a practice midterm, and there's other things you throw in that can throw you a little bit. You do start to feel a little bit like you need to stay on top of things, so it can eat into another day's study. But that's just how I structure it. It just works. It's just hard to get that kind of structure otherwise. So I just dedicate that time at the weekend to it, which I enjoy. It's a different way, as I said, of using your brain. And it's also just separation from your work. You feel less anxious about your work. You're just focusing on something completely different, and that's really enjoyable.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing about that, everyone. And the one thing I think that's a nice takeaway that you heard is that there's no one right way that has to work for everyone, that it's flexible, and that there's different approaches, and you can just tailor it to work for you and whatever that is. And we'll bring to you and provide lots of support as far as finding that right spot for you, whatever it is, as far as the time allotment that you can consistently put towards the program to make it work and fit into your busy lives. So as kind of a last question before kind of turning it over to the questions, which I already see some coming in, is just let's talk about campus life for a little bit. So naturally, all of you are back in an academic program. You're here at UCLA, at the law school, and we're not going to go around to everyone here. Just anyone can jump in and answer this question. So, what's that like? What are the types of events that you like to have, and that maybe you've attended? How are the networking opportunities like? Those types of events. What is that like? Talk about that. Anyone can jump in.
I can jump in first if you want.
I'll social chair after him.
So I love how regular, and I didn't know this was going to be part of it. I love how regular we have, the outdoor dinners at the moment, which is great. So there is a lot of networking, and it's been nice to meet some of the first year students as well that are now in their second year. So those have been great. I'd love to be more immersed in some of the other things that are happening. I think that's and as I'm looking ahead to how I'm gonna which classes I'm gonna opt in for next term. And one of the things that's interesting is you can also take J-term as well, which is really interesting. So you can also, if you want to dedicate a couple of weeks to some intensive study. I didn't know this until orientation, that actually you can actually do 2 weeks of J-term and get 3 credits that way. So you can still kind of stay on track for a 2-year part-time graduation. So that's a really good thing. So thinking about that, you might be able to also get involved in some of the other activities that are happening. I think having spoken to some of my friends, I think we'd like to get more into it. At the moment, we're just sort of balancing. First semester is pretty intense, and we're for all the reasons we just discussed, and that's what a lot of the second years have told us. But we're looking forward to the second semester, where I think that intensity level drops down a bit, so we can maybe get a bit more involved in some of the other activities.
So I like to marry networking and social, as you may have gathered. Some of us in the cohort show out to football games to support OB, who is one of our who's part of the cohort as well. That's been super fun. We also have Olivia Athens, who is a student athlete on the women's soccer team. And she's getting recognized at a game on Halloween, and a couple of us are showing out for that and mingling with each other and also supporting our fellow colleague. With that as well, I know that Giles mentioned that the M.L.S. office also puts on these networking dinners before class sometimes. Those create like just a great opportunity for all of us to mingle before class and get to know a little more about what we do, why we picked the program, and what we hope to get out of it. And also occasionally we've made it a point to kind of get together once a month in sort of like a happy hour setting to get to know each other outside of like the campus environment, the classroom environment, and really dig into more of like what we do and kind of network that way. So a lot of the networking opportunities are pretty much like what you as a student try to get out of it. Michelle Edgar, I know, is just a networking boss, and she's a great person to kind of like as a starting point connect with to see if she can put you in touch with anyone. But really all of us in the cohort have such great connections through work, through personal life, through different affinity groups that we're passionate about, that really the networking opportunities are endless. So that's my bit. I'll turn it over to Brad.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about campus life too, and how different that is than a professional life, right? And so that Giles has talked about a little bit too, and how you're using different parts of your brain, and you're switching from like an intense job, and then you're going into this new academic life. And it's been really rewarding in that sense, just to have all of these options that are just thrown at you. There's constantly new things happening, and like with all the email like additions to different kinds of focus groups, and anyone who would be interested in like public advocacy, like we were saying, and just there's just a litany of things to be able to volunteer for. So I think that part's been really cool. This beginning semester, again, it's like, we're going to class at night, and so it's not like the daytime campus experience. So I try to get some sort of time during the day on campus whenever I can. We took a tour, that was really fun. We did that week-long intensive that we really got to get to know a little bit more about like what it would be like in the day. So that's another angle there, so like football games and like anything that's going on, like this is all available to us too. It's just putting the time in for it.
And don't forget the party where we're the oldest people there, Brad.
Yeah, that is very true. We have to remind some people, like the first year law students, like, yeah, we haven't been in school in like, I don't know, 15 or 20 years. That's why.
Yeah, as far as ages are concerned too, we mentioned the average age, but the part-time program we've had an age range of students from starting the program as 24-year-olds all the way up to, we had someone who started who was 72, and so it's been pretty interesting seeing the range of individuals who come and start this program. Chester, did you want to tackle that question too about networking and campus life at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was a little different for us because our first year was remote because of COVID. But I think we still formed great bonds. I've last weekend was my birthday, and I hung out with so many. I celebrated with so many of my M.L.S. Classmates that I met remote that I gained 4 pounds in one weekend. So that probably gives you an idea for how much fun we had. So we had, I literally spent the whole week. Now I'm not from LA, so I don't really know anybody else out here, but we had a party Friday night with about 10 or 15 people from the program. It was great. Just awesome. I mean, there are there's so many opportunities that you can't take advantage of all of them. But I will say, being back in school is such a unique way to connect with people. There's no office politics. There's no salary jealousy. We all have the same homework and exams that we have to do and things like that. So it's just a wonderful way to meet people who are interested in similar things, and it's just been phenomenal. And then at that event also we had some of the younger folks, including some of the LLMs that I've met in other classes. and some of those of us who are more experienced, we're exchanging job advice and things like that, and leads and all that stuff. So it's just been as good as could be on that dimension. Even though we were remote our entire first year, and I was on the other side I was doing class from Florida, and still made great friends. So I would imagine in person it's even better.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for everyone for taking the time today as panelists. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor now to questions. If any of the attendees want to chat any questions in the chat box, feel free and we'll pose them. So whether it's a question or anything you want to hear more about that was already discussed, all good. And I see the first question has been answered in the chat box too, but I wanted to talk about this for a bit. The gist is what kind of job prospects are there or whatnot from graduating from this program? And I'll answer that real quick here up front. And the main thing we want to say about this program is the type of part-time student who's been attracted to this program is not necessarily looking for a new job. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to go look to see what jobs are posted that are looking for Master of Legal Studies graduate. It's much more designed for people who are in current positions and trajectories and are looking to enhance that growth. And so that's definitely what this program is about. And I think you saw that with all four of the panelists here. I think this is pretty indicative of that. Now we have had many students who have been able to leverage this program and the networking opportunities to find opportunities for new jobs and find opportunities for that. A lot of time it's been because of the education they received, sometimes also from the networking. And so there's kind of a lot of ways to kind of enhance and boost that. And as a student in this program at this school, you get full access to UCLA Career Services Department if that's something that's valuable to you. And if you're looking to, maybe you have a job, you're going there, maybe you want to be hired by a different company, that's something that UCLA can absolutely help you with. Okay, so there's a question that's this one specifically for Chester, since Chester has an MBA already. Can you tell us more about how the Master of Legal Studies worked with your previous MBA? How would you compare your experience to that of your traditional JD MBA, and how has that helped you in your role as an executive? How do you interact with creatives in your company? Thanks for the time.
A lot of questions there. My memory's not that good anymore. So
let's focus on the how does it compare with your experience with the MBA? So people here at about 35 to 40% of our students coming into the program already have a graduate degree. And so how has this program kind of maybe enhanced what you already know from what you learned previously in an MBA program?
Well, there are two really big differences. One is that everything I did in my MBA, I did an MBA later in life. I did an executive MBA. I lived abroad for many years and didn't really have access. I wanted to do an MBA when I was younger, but I couldn't. And so I started my MBA, I think, when I had probably like 12 years of experience. And so as a result of that, and I was working in finance, and my MBA was at the University of Chicago. It was a lot of finance. And so I hate to say this, but I probably didn't learn as much as most people learn in their MBAs. Now, part of that might be just because, I did my MBA in a field that I was already working in. So that's part of it. The other thing is the MBA was really, I think it's a very broad skill set. They'll teach you a general marketing class, they'll teach you a general finance class, et cetera. There weren't, at least in my program, that many opportunities to dive into a specific industry and learn about that. Learn about that industry. I'm sure there are exceptions to that, but at least in my program, it was the case that you had a really broad general purpose degree, whereas here at UCLA, at least my experience has been that you can dive in really deeply into a specific subject, and that's really what I was missing. So that may be unique to me, but that was really appealing. As far as the difference, the differences are massive. This is law school. There's literally I've seen almost no numbers in this degree. Every previous degree I did was numbers. And so you're using a different part of your brain, which is great for me. Well, I can't remember if there were any other parts of the question I'm supposed to answer, but
no, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Sure. So then, kind of piggybacking on that, so there's certainly plenty of prospective students who already have an MBA, have another graduate degree, and are looking to do this one. But Brad and Giles, earlier you mentioned kind of why you chose this one instead of an MBA. So can you kind of just reiterate kind of that point? So what made you choose this one rather than going the MBA route?
So could I add one more thing? So I'm
yes.
sorry to
jump
jump
in.
in. I think part of that question was, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this on my phone, and I don't really know how to use Zoom on my phone.
Doing great.
So just one thing. I think one part of that question was, why not do a JD MBA? I mean, this to me seems like it's effectively a JD MBA. You have to go through all the pain of a full law degree, and frankly, if you don't want to be a lawyer, that's in my opinion, a complete waste of your time and of your life. We're getting the best. You know, if you do an JD MBA and your intent is not to become an attorney with an MBA, but rather to become a business person with a law background, this is all the law that you need and then some. And you can save yourself a huge amount of money and time and frankly, blood, sweat, and tears of not doing that. You know, that 1L gauntlet, which frankly we don't need. So I think this is the best of the JD MBA at a much lower cost, both in terms of time, money, and effort.
I can jump in after Chester. So for me, really, I mean, a little bit of what Chester said. I think when I looked at MBAs, they're very general. And the other real reason, I have to be honest, is that it's oversaturated. I mean, there's just MBA. When I was looking at it, I just think, you know, they've lost the credibility they once had, because they're everywhere. There's so many different programs. This is much more tailored to your specific objectives. I was going to say your work, because that's not that, as I mentioned earlier, you know, those can your objectives can change. You think it's one thing, and then as you start to study, you find a real interest in certain other areas that you maybe weren't expecting, but are very applicable. So I think that was it. It's really, this is a cutting edge program. You know, it's not widely known. There's only so many places that you can take an M.L.S. It is, you know, as a direct kind of way of responding to the fact that, you know, law firms are really becoming these full service, you know, organizations, and it's in some ways trying to prevent, you know, law firms having an answer for everything, you know, and actually there are a lot of things that can be dealt with by non-lawyers. If you just know if you know enough about it, you don't have to always bring in a law firm, which are increasingly becoming full service. They're becoming, you know, consulting firms. So I think that's the reason I think the program exists is really that for that reason. And that was why MBA just wasn't appealing to me when I looked at it. I felt like it was a lot of, as Chester said, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of areas that really aren't going to be very relevant to me and where I am in my career right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree on that whole sentiment. Really, like I looked at MBAs for sure. You know, being a vice president at a media company, I feel like I've already kind of gotten the MBA experience out of my career by just being around. You know, like I've hired plenty of MBAs. They've been on my team, and none of them really gave me much insight that they've learned that really like projected them into this career path in media entertainment with music and you know, like within the business legal of life. I do believe that this is very cutting edge. I think it's an interesting need. It's an answer to a need that's happening where MBAs are more saturated, or people aren't necessarily looking for people who are MBA qualified anymore, as opposed to these new things with, you know, let's get into business affairs and like, what does it actually mean to like negotiate something on behalf of a company, and then kick it up to legal whenever you need it, you know, type of thing. Because I do believe people are looking at what the costs are and everything with in-house counsel versus what it would be to just have a third party do it at some point. So I want to bridge that gap. And like, that's a big thing that I'm doing here at the Viacom CBS level. I'm constantly working in between what our lawyers and attorneys are doing versus what business affairs really means and what that does. So that's kind of how I've been looking at it. The time and the cost is very much a part of it too. So an executive MBA program is really intense. It's quite expensive. I haven't found anything under 200K. I think that that's very expensive, and I don't really know how that would accelerate the way that I would go in my career path. In here, I think it's a lot more affordable, and also, you know, as we've been talking, it's just it's new, and and I can fit it into my schedule the way I need to.
All right, thank you so much. And so let's close out here. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions that you brought. Very interesting. And let's close out here with kind of final thoughts. So if someone, what would be a couple things that you would, if you're talking directly to a prospective student, what should that prospective student be thinking about as they make their decision if they should apply for the Master of Legal Studies and come to UCLA specifically? What would you tell them as kind of a final thought type thing? And we'll start with we'll go Brad, Vanessa, Giles, Chester.
You're gonna start with me.
Yeah, on the spot.
Kind of like what I was talking about just now. I really do believe this program, when you're looking at anything within this periphery, right? Like I want to be in legal, but I don't want to be a lawyer. I want a good degree that could be an interesting, like cutting edge, like what's going to happen next in my career. I think this is a really interesting one to go for. UCLA, it's top rated. You can look at what it is, like the public universities, just number one right now is what we're looking at. I'm doing business entertainment law. I mean, that's another number one type of situation. And we've got like this internal team and this bevy of resources of people who are working within the industry, but also publishing and like really held as like high regard within not just what the academia world is, but also like how it actually fits into LA with a huge entertainment, the core of entertainment industry there. So for me, it just made that much sense. And if I were going to do a master's of legal studies, like it was really only UCLA. I did look at a couple other ones, but it just didn't feel as, I don't know, well-formed, not as like this mission statement is really solid, and it's just like, this is what we're here to do. And I think that's the part that really sold me on it.
Thanks, Brad. Vanessa.
So when looking at, just your other options and weighing that against the M.L.S. program at UCLA, I would invite prospective applicants to think about the time commitment, the cost, and the return on investment. What I've heard from a lot of the second years, mind you, I'm still in my first semester, but what I've heard from a lot of the second years is that Koropkin's like intro to negotiation class, as an example, they took away a lot of good concepts and a lot of good skills that they were able to apply to their workplace right away. So again, I just invite people to think of the time commitment, the costs, and can I apply this to my job as soon as I graduate or even before? So those are my takeaways.
Thanks. Giles.
I think, my final thought is that, if you're looking for an immersive experience, I don't think there's anything better really. And that's just bouncing off some of the things that we've kind of been mentioned. It really is a truly immersive experience to the extent, you're in a law school, you're not in an executive building that's off somewhere else. You're walking the same halls that law students are. You're in the library with law students. The classes are very immersive with the Socratic teaching method. You're very much, it's not, if you're looking for a master's where you're working on it and you're eating dinner and doing something different at the same time, and you're not, and that's fine if you're it's sort of arm's length, then this isn't necessarily the right approach. But for all of us, I think all of us have really loved that immersion, and that is what I think really makes this very unique to a lot of it, is that piece of it. So that's just something I think that needs to be thought about, because that it pulls you in right from the start, and with that comes a lot of time commitment, a lot of some pressure, but also a lot of enjoyment as well. So I think we're all riding that roller coaster.
Thanks. And Chester.
I really think this is probably too simple a way to put it, but I suspect that if anybody is even thinking about this program, they ought to just do it. It's a no-brainer. I mean, I think the return on investment, and I don't just mean financially, it's not even close to break even. It's a 5x return or something like that. I mean, I got one job and have had a couple other really interesting opportunities presented to me, basically solely as a result of being involved in this program. I met wonderful people. If in my case, this isn't probably relevant for some, but moving to Los Angeles, this is the best way to make a great group of friends, but also to get an immediate wonderful professional network too, just right off the bat. So yeah, I mean, I would just sum it up. If you're thinking about doing it, you probably should stop thinking and just do it. I mean, it's such a clearly good investment, in my opinion, that I would just say jump in with both feet, get ready for a little bit of stress the first semester, and then enjoy.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Brad, Vanessa, Giles, Chester, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to share your experiences with all of our prospective students. I really appreciate it. And everyone who attended today, thank you so much for attending. Feel free to follow up with us to ask any questions you might have. We're more than happy to help and connect with you to help make the best decision for you. And if this program is that, then we look forward to seeing you this August in the start of the program. So thanks again. Hope to connect with you soon.